Good afternoon, and welcome to our newest edition of Faculty Lounge Live. This event, in case this is your first time here, this event is set up to be an opportunity to interact with colleagues across the campus because we all have similar issues and we all like to work together to support our student success. It is my pleasure today to be meeting with Ricky Langlois, who is senior instructor in College of Criminology and Criminal Justice. I said it right?
Well, it's the school, but that's
School.
good.
Okay. All right. And Ricky comes to the college, to the school, with a background of a strong background of service to his country. And this comes through in all of his classes. We've worked with him in a lot of it. It comes through, shining through. So I'm going to let you go into a little bit more introduction.
Well, I was a combat infantry officer in the United States Army. And then after that, I moved on to becoming a law enforcement officer at the federal level. And as a special agent, I spent some 26 years. It was one of the best times of my life, actually. But after 26 years of working law enforcement, I thought it was time to move on. And at the time, I was still young enough to say, you know what, I've done enough now. And while I was actually in law enforcement is when I developed that love of teaching. And at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center in Glencoe, Georgia, I was able to teach individuals coming into the academy. And I found after a few years that I really enjoyed it. And so I never dreamed of actually coming to a place like Florida Atlantic. But the day I retired, and this is kind of strange, but the day I retired that evening, I received a phone call from the dean.
Wow.
And asking me to come down just for an interview. They were interested in my background and my educational background. And so I came down and I got the job, and I've been here ever since.
And we are grateful to have you here. So, Ricky, we share a really strong perspective on supporting our students' success. How do you see the topic of looking at data and new analytics as being able to support student success?
I see it. To me, it's one of the most important things. I mean, I do this primarily. I do it for my students. I'm a teacher, both online and in the classroom, and I just want to understand what works best for my students. How do they learn the most? But I also want to know where they struggle.
Okay.
And if I can figure that out, then I can be a much better teacher. They can learn at a higher level, hopefully, without any type of impediments in the way. And I'll tell you, and I think I've told you this before, it is a learning process for me.
It is for all of us.
It's I have done a tremendous amount of professional development. Going back, as you well know, where I first met you, we were in class together. And I just never stopped because I saw the value of not just initially, if you'll remember back then, it was really focused on quality matters and making sure that that course alignment was what it was, all the way from the chapter level all the way down. I mean, just all the way down from the chapter into each of the modules. And so
what do you see when you are looking for the analytics? What are you looking for to give you that background, that support?
Well, the analytics gives me the ability to take a peek behind the scenes.
Okay.
It's about data. And I had a colleague tell me one time, we were having a discussion, and he said, Ricky, data matters. And I thought about what he said, and I thought, you know what? He's right, and I need to do this. And then I had another colleague tell me about new analytics. And so when I combine those two ideas together, I realized that, you know what, this is worth the time and it's worth the effort
Mhm.
because I can see it gives me a peek. It gives me a peek behind the curtain, so to speak. What's
Okay.
working best for them and where are they struggling?
So what we're seeing is the the homepage for one of your courses, right?
Yes, it is. This is my criminology course. It's a core course for us in the School of
Mhm.
Criminology and Criminal Justice. And to the right there, what you're seeing is the first tab that you can see, and that'll take you into the world of new analytics.
Okay.
And that's the place you would start.
And then what do you look for when you get there?
Well, once you get in there, and this is where you just need to go in there and have some fun and play a little bit, but you're going to see some things in there. You're going to see the overall course average. You can see an arrow up where you see a little email icon. You can see that I have, in this particular instance, I have my assignments and discussions and exams and quizzes. You're seeing all of my assignments up there, denoted by shapes. And I realized that I can look at it in this form on the XY axis, or I can also go to a different form and look at it in a
Okay.
chart and tables and whatnot. So
Okay.
it's this first page is just the beginning of your first journey going into it.
And so your data charts then is where you head next.
That's right. What you're doing, you're just you're taking a look at it from different perspectives. And here, what you're looking at here, you can see this is a data table. On the right-hand side, top right-hand side, you can actually view charts and tables. It
Okay.
gives you the ability to do both of those. And so you want to make sure you can capture that because it's just a different way of looking at the data.
Yeah.
That's all that is. But you also want to be able to see, and we'll show in a slide here in a moment where the slide that you see here, this is an important slide. You can see that I have blacked out the
So
student's name.
this is the information on one specific student then, right?
Yeah, I decided you can only, when you get into the analytical part here, the new analytics, you're only able to see 2 students maximum.
Okay.
The idea is to be able to take a look at what the entire class is doing and then take a look at the student that you're concerned about.
Okay.
And what you're seeing is the ability to say, those arrows indicate the student obviously falls well below the class norm or
okay.
the class average. That's your first indication that, well, we need to delve just a tad bit deeper into this and try to understand what the true picture is here. What aren't
Okay.
they doing? What aren't they viewing? Why are they falling so far below? Is it just they're not putting the time in, or is it something else?
Okay.
And that's why you got to just keep going further into it.
Digging into it. Okay. And so then beyond that, what would be your next steps?
Well, what you want to do is to be able to pull up and look at things like page views and participation rates. And again, here you can see that I've looked at the assignments thus far in the semester, and you begin to get the idea that well, we may have a problem. And because you have that problem, you're going to need to take the next step and to be able to ascertain, okay, what is this exactly? What are we seeing here? Where are the struggles coming from? I alluded to earlier, you want to learn how students learn best, but you also want to understand where they struggle most.
Okay.
That's what I'm doing. I want to find out, is there something here that I can do? And that's the bottom line behind new analytics. It just gives you the ability to track a student and to track the class overall and to compare the students
Oh, right.
with the class
Okay.
and then begin to look a little deeper into the page views, the participation rates. All of these things matter. And then ultimately a story will begin to unfold.
Okay. Okay. And so from there, what's next?
Well, One of the things you need to do is get a firm understanding. Here you can see in this particular slide, I've decided to use a table, and I am looking at the student. You can see I still have this blacked out, so I still have this particular student
Right.
that I'm focused on. And what I want to do is just simply see how they can be compared to what you're seeing up there in the table above. The table below is, of course, the student, the table above, and then here below it, it's down in a table form. And I just want to see how they compare. It's all about comparing time spent,
Okay.
pages viewed, the participation rates, things of that nature.
Okay. So pages viewed would be what? Would be the information that you provide for them, the content information, the scaffolding? What would be a part of that?
All of the above. You bring up a great point. I build scaffolding exercises inside all the way up to, let's say that I want them to, not just an exam, but let's say it's an essay. Certainly I would want to build something into that before they got to that essay.
Right. So they don't get it hit cold with write this essay.
Of course not. They need to have content. They need to have not just the lectures that I provide and video lectures, but there needs to be something else in there that's going to lead them up to that, including the PowerPoints. Everything that I have is leading up to that one particular exercise.
So it's content and context.
Content and context. And so if you see someone not going in, and it's more than, let's say that you had a couple of discussion questions prior to leading up to the essay that you want them to perform, one of many. You would certainly want to take a look at how well they did in those discussion questions, but you would also want to look at the content that they viewed.
Okay.
How many times did they view it? These things become very important because if they viewed the content and they studied your material, why are they still not doing well? Now, I'm talking not just because they may have turned it in late or got penalized. I'm looking at the content.
Right.
You want to know why that is. And you want to catch it as early as you can, obviously. And that's what I try to do.
Okay. Okay. And so then where do you take it from there?
Well, what you see here, again, this the whole class, this is the entire class. This gives me the opportunity not just to look at the overall grades in the class, but it gives me the ability to look at all the page views, the participation rates. Everything is here for me. But this is in a different form. You can look at this data in other forms, obviously, but this is the form I choose best that I like to look at because I can just go down and look. And I can also see more than one student.
Right.
And identify, am I seeing other students? Are there other students? And every instructor, every professor is going to have to make a decision in their mind, what's enough? Where do you draw the line? Is it 70%, 75%? Where is that? Once I see that, if I see too many individuals say that are failing,
Okay. Right.
doing poorly,
Which for you is what?
where
do you draw?
if
where
they're
do you
below a
draw?
C,
Okay.
I'm concerned.
Okay.
Many of my colleagues, we have that word we use when we send our emails. I'm concerned.
Yeah.
And then I'm getting to a point now I'm concerned, not just about the student, but now I'm concerned if more than what I would consider to be an acceptable number are doing poorly. It is a reflection on the way I have taught. Perhaps it could be the scaffolding approaches you suggested. It could be something else. But then I have to begin to think that, you know what, I may need to look at this differently. I may need to make some enhancements. Not a full-blown redesign, but pertinent to that particular assignment, is there something else I could do? Every person that teaches goes through this.
Yeah.
They have to make a determination. The worst part about that is you have to take a hard, cold look at yourself sometimes and say, I just didn't do as good a job on this as I thought is probably as well as I should have. But what am I going to do about it?
Yeah. Yeah.
What am I going to do about it? And for me, it's not that difficult a decision to make. I start making enhancements to the assignment and just move on.
Okay. Okay. So you are willing to take a look at what you do. I think you've got the slide about how to reach out to them, because you said you can send them emails, right?
You know what? You can. And back on the first slide, there was that the reason I showed the little email emblem is because at any point in time in there, you can just reach up there and do it, and a drop down menu will come down, and you can actually say, email all students below 70, email all students who are missing. You can do all of that. I wanted to show that particular slide because in the grade book, you can actually click on what we call the hamburger, those three dots.
Yeah.
And it'll drop down in your grade book, and you can actually do the same thing. And you can very quickly say, email all students who are missing, or who are late, who are below a certain grade.
Okay.
And it's worthy because you don't want to email them individually. You can just go in there and email everybody that isn't meeting the criteria. And I do it to message students. My exams are up for a week, but when they start getting to the last day, I email them and say,
Reminders.
all right, just a reminder, I'm concerned. Why don't you get in there and try to get that done?
All right.
Really, what we're talking about here is a multifaceted way of just letting your students know, first and foremost, that you care.
Yes, exactly.
You're emailing them, and now they know that you know they haven't taken the exam, or they're doing poorly in class. They know that you're not doing well on the discussions of the essays, and you're concerned. I don't know that there's any better relationship to have with your students, for them to know, listen, I'm here.
Yep.
I understand. And I'm not fearful of explaining to my students that I have this tool called New Analytics.
Yeah.
And I explain that to them. And I've taken a hard look at what you've been doing. I can see that your participation rates are far below the class average. I can see that, the views on your content leading up to your exam. We could have a discussion. We need to talk about some of these things.
And Ricky, as we were talking about preparing for this, I think you mentioned a specific situation where you saw a student who seemed to be dropping down. You reached out to them, and it made a difference. Can you share that with us?
Yeah, this one particular individual did very poorly on the exam, the exam one, and as we were going into exam two, right before the midterm grades were going to go in, I emailed him, much the way I went through this entire process. And actually, it doesn't take that long, by the way. I mean, once you get used to it, you can kind of go through it. And I did. I contacted the student. We had a chance to visit. I told him what I saw. He acknowledged everything that I saw. And I said, why don't you let me help you? I'm going to help you study for the next exam. I'm going to give you some things that you didn't do for the first one. Well, when I went back after the exam two was finished, he doubled his grade. He more than doubled his grade. And I just emailed him back, and I just told, I'm very proud of you. Now, that's just one success story. But what's worthwhile here is that I could tell it wasn't the time. It was the quality of his effort in reviewing the information, the pages, if you will, that were very pertinent to doing well on the exam. And once I directed the student to follow the following steps, obviously the outcome was it was very I was very happy for him. I was.
So, in addition to providing the information that they need to study, you also are supporting them in how to study, what to do to what the retrieval practices to make that studying more effective for them.
I do. I just believe if and this should not be a mystery because I do a lot of video messaging and tell the students even prior to an exam, I have a video attached to the exam. And the video is short, it's not that long, but I explain to them if you want to succeed on this exam, here's some advice.
Okay.
And I don't hide the fact that these tools are in there. It's in their Canvas LMS. It's in their shell. But sometimes I think they just they get lost.
Sure.
Between video messages and PowerPoints and textbooks, and it can be overwhelming. And I don't want them to be overwhelmed. I want them to have the experience of enjoying the content.
Yeah.
That's the whole idea behind it.
I think we might have a question.
Yeah, hi there. So we have a question from Sierra. She asks a question for Mr. Langlois. Do you find that analyzing data helps you then revise assignments that students may have struggled with?
Sierra, I do. It makes all the difference in the world. Let me just give you a quick example. And I learned this from a colleague as well. I learn everything from colleagues. But I actually learned this from Dr. Bruce Arniclev. I hope he doesn't mind me throwing him in the fire there. But, you can go to an exam, for instance, and you can click on the statistics on an exam.
Sure.
And you can get the average grade, the standard deviation. It shows you a great graph of all the students. There's so much information in there. And then as you go down there, you can see the percentage of students that are right, the percentage of students that are wrong. And when you see, by way of example, on a particular question that 60% of the students missed that question.
Wow.
Yeah, and you see a couple of those and you're going down through there and you're going, oh my. And
That's what you said, right?
Yeah, and Sierra, you begin to do your research and you go in and look at the question. And of course, the thing you're asking yourself is, did I not cover this? Did I not cover it somehow, some way in my PowerPoint? Where is it? Did I not do this enough? Because way too many students missed it. And that's a problem. Is it just a bad question? Multiple choice questions can sometimes be confusing. And sometimes you'll find, Sierra, that you could have probably done it better. If that many students missed it, you have to be able to say, you know what, I'm going to do something about that. And
the fact that you are willing to take a look at it from your own perspective. And there's been some research done about the perspective of looking at things from an expert's perspective as opposed to a novice's perspective. And it's hard for us to change that viewpoint. So the fact that you're willing to take a deeper dive into how you did it, how you set it up for them, is admirable. It's great.
Well, I have colleagues that I talk with a lot, and there are many of us that feel the same. But you do have to be able to go in there after an exam, or, I'm big on discussions and essays, and I'm also big on having a really nice grading rubric that is very detailed and specific.
Absolutely.
But what if? What if they don't understand? I mean, you sort of, in my mind, you want to make sure that they have all the available tools that you can possibly give them to be successful. And if I haven't done that, I have no recourse other than to fix it.
Okay.
There's always to fix it, and feel bad about it, but you can always give them credit for the question, even though it was a bad question. Just give them credit for it. But Yeah, I just, it means a lot to me.
Yeah, it is. It's very important. So you have you've given us an overview perspective on the new analytics. How do you go deeper?
Well, one of the things I do, here you're seeing a slide. And once again, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge this. A colleague of mine said, "Look, I want to show you something." And so he showed me. It was Dr. Frank Dilatori, and he showed me, and I just fell out. And I went, "Well, this is great." And so I started playing with the Success Network, and it was a way that I can make a decision. I can just email the student,
Mhm.
just like what I showed earlier, or I can go to the Success Network here first. That's your first. That's where your first button is going to go. You click on that. Then you'll see another one here. That's us, faculty and advisors. Then you log in. Once you log in, uh, then you then begin to be able to not just look at more information about the student themselves. For instance, you can see prior classes.
Really?
And I always like to see prior classes that they've had in CCJ and what their grades were and see how they were doing. Um, and then I can just take a look at their overall grade
Yeah.
point average. And then I can email them from here. The difference between the Success Network and emailing them in the Success Network, it's going to send an alert to the advisor.
Oh, I
And so
see.
a group of our advisors, one of them will get that email, and then they too can begin to focus on the student to try to ascertain what, if anything, we can do
Right.
to help at this juncture. Now, I do want to stress this. It's not going to do much good to go there at the end of the semester and
Right.
issue an alert and then have the advisor go, well, yeah, there's a problem here. Because in the Success Network there's a drop-down menu, basically, why are you here? And when you click on the student, it'll have a drop-down menu and the student is in danger of failing.
Wow.
That's in the subject line. And so then the advisor gets that, the student gets it, and generally speaking, it's very successful. Students will contact me and they'll go, I got your email. And of course, I'm sure we have a
Yeah.
great group of advisors.
Yeah.
I know the advisors have gotten a hold of them. And so I'm going, yes, I was waiting for you. Now let's talk.
All
You
right.
know, but let me just say this again, and I may be repeating myself. When I'm talking to the students, and I do it by phone, I'll set up a Zoom. Um, I tell them everything. I explain to them the analytics behind why I'm talking to
Okay.
them. And I explain it up front so they understand this is why we're having the discussion we're having.
Right.
That way you understand, and I know that you're not putting in the time and you're not looking at the right pages leading up to any type of assignment, etc. It sort of breaks the ice a little bit. And then I just move on and tell them, you can pull this out. You can do well. We can do this together. And it's going to take both of you, obviously.
Right. Sure. Yeah.
Or if you have a graduate teaching assistant like I have, I've got a great graduate teaching assistant. She is just as forceful on this as I am. And so it makes a great
Well trained,
great
I
team.
assume then.
Well, yeah, she is. And she's fantastic, but she loves it. So
Yeah.
it's a good combination.
Yeah. That's great. That's great. So, any parting comments that you would like to make for us?
You know, the only thing I would say is I realize that initially, before you get used to using
Yeah.
the analytics and playing with the charts and tables, um, it actually gets quite fun. But it's going to take a little bit of time. And doing the emailing and going into the Success Network and emailing students, it's time intensive in many respects.
Sure.
So I understand that just about everybody's plate is full. even mine. And but I don't have the same level of responsibility, say, as some of our tenure track professors that are doing a lot of research, grant
Yeah.
writing, and so I would just encourage those individuals, along with all my colleagues, that it's worthwhile just to take a look. Go in
Yeah.
and take a look, um, and see uh, if it's beneficial. Is it going to be productive for you? Is it productive for the student? I can say without a doubt, the student is going to be very pleased. I think that you reached out and you're saying,
Absolutely.
I can help you. Or as my colleague tells me, I'm concerned, you know? And so that just is sort of a disarming thing to a student to begin with. They know you're concerned and now you're willing to help. And I don't know that any student that I know of really wants to fail.
No.
But I will say this to all my colleagues, my DFW rates mean something to me. And when those DFW rates get just a little bit too high, and our director is more than responsive to say, listen, if you want to know them, I will show them to you. But you don't want, once you see those getting a little bit out of hand, you've got to be asking yourself,
Yeah.
am I just that hard of an instructor, or what's going on here?
Is there something more?
Is there something more? And it's that something more, I believe, is what got me looking a little deeper.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, you've known me a long time. You know that, I mean, you've helped me so much. I've I've sent 5 courses through QM. I've done it. I've tried my best to be the best instructor that I could possibly be. But it is far greater than just having great alignment in your course and having it go through the QM process.
Yeah.
I almost say now that I've got introduced to this and some other things, that it's almost the beginning. You just have
Mhm.
to keep moving
Yeah.
forward because you can always be better.
But the key component, I think, is the fact that every student that you have knows that you are genuinely interested in them and in their success.
I hope so.
Yeah,
If at the end of the day, I do hope that they know that, because that's why I'm here.
absolutely.
That is why I'm here. I'm here for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Do we have any other questions from our guests?
Hi, Judy. Hi, Ricky. Um, just like to ask Ricky a question. I know you use Respondus browser lockdown. I had an issue recently where I had a student say that she was using an Apple iPad. And I always thought you can't use those. And she says, no, I can. They're telling me if you approve it, that I can use the iPad. Through your analytics, is she correct? Can I approve that as an instructor and allow her to use an iPad while I use lockdown browser?
You know, I have been down the same road that you have been down, and yeah, the answer is yes. Um, if you when you go into lockdown, if you go, let's just use an exam for example, because I think that may be what you're alluding to here. Um, and you click on the exam, and if you go to settings, and if you travel down just a little bit, you'll see a place for advanced settings. If you click on that, you're going to see where you can actually check mark, if you will. What it is, it's a dot, and when you do it, it'll probably turn blue on you. You can give them permission to use the Apple iPad. And that has worked for me very well in the past. It doesn't happen a lot, but I do notice that there are quite a few students that will ask to use, if it's okay to use an iPad, and I've never had a problem with it. Mainly, Frank, I'll tell you why. I have found that a lot of students don't have computers, and that's why they go to the library and other places around the campus to get those to get the computer to be able to use lockdown browser with a webcam. And so the iPad is being more often used, but the answer is yes. If you do that, you should be able to get in, and they should have no problem whatsoever.
And Frank, I think there was a message that came through on Canvas just within the last day or so about that same topic, and I did not read it in detail, so I can't give you the specifics, but I believe that you can check through there and get some more information on it.
Yeah, it's going to be under the advanced settings, but if you go there, you'll see it.
Yeah, thank you. Do we have another question?
That's a very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a question from Michelle asking, can you share the instructions for this for a student to use the Apple tablet for the lockdown browser?
I don't see any reason why you couldn't share that with your students. I see no problem. I've never turned a student away. If they want to use an iPad, they don't. Really, the heavy lifting is on your part, having to go in and go to the advanced settings and allow them to use it. That's really the hardest part about that journey. After that, it's been very successful for all of my students.
Thank you for that.
Yeah,
Thank
that was
you
a
for
good
that.
question. Yeah.
Any other questions or comments? Well, Ricky, we are absolutely delighted to have you share your knowledge, your wisdom, your experience, and your unique perspective.
You know, I enjoy this. I think that much of what I have learned, honestly, over my last 13 years, going on 13 years here now, I have learned so much from my colleagues. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys with all your professional development and the help I've had through Quality Matters and all of my courses. It's a network.
It is,
And if we just keep it going, and I mean, I think we're going to be just fine. I think we have a long way to go.
Yeah. And the bottom line is that we're here to support our students.
Absolutely.
Anything and everything we can do to move us in that direction. So thank you so much, and thank each of you for joining us today.